Episode number 2 with a couple of ACC chicks just hanging out, right? Maryland, Christy Winter-Scott, NC State, Debbie Antonelli. But most of the time we spend here talking about professional women's basketball in the WNBA. So, Christy, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am great. Great to see you as always. Love, love, love.
I know, love to you too. We go back a long ways. I'm sure someday we'll probably chronicle our history of friendship together at some point. But if any listeners or viewers out there have a topic they want us to discuss, please send it to us. We'd be happy to talk about it. This is episode 2, so we're getting cranked up here. We're going to try to keep this to 30 minutes. So, Christy, let's dive right in. First topic, U.S. national team roster was announced. Diana Taurasi has already going for number 6.
Number 6, Deb?
Can you believe it? I mean, she's turning 42 this week, I believe. It's just amazing. I know I'm out there in the driveway shooting free throws for Special Olympics. I know how my body feels. I can't imagine what she's put herself through. And she probably doesn't have the $1 million that LeBron has to keep herself up to speed, right?
Yeah, the hyperbaric chambers and all that other stuff. I don't know what he does. But wow, DT, 6. That's insane. But I mean, she's still getting it done, man. I think she had over 20 points yesterday. I mean, she is just iconic when it comes to sustaining her level of excellence. It's incredible.
I feel like Nate Tibbetts and his style of play has given her longevity because she's able to do what she does well, and that is run the lane, shoot the 3, come off flares, pin downs, all that stuff. And she's so good at it still. So shooters never die. It's like riding a bike, I think. She's so good at it, but the fitness part of it's what's so interesting to me.
Yeah.
All right. So the big conversation across the landscape in sport, once again, is around Caitlin Clark and not being selected to the USA national team roster to compete for the 2024 Olympic gold medal, which would be our 8th in a row. What's your thoughts on it?
You know what? I've heard all the narratives, and I don't like to be swayed by what everyone else is saying about it. I have my own opinion. My own opinion is that it's okay that she's not on there. And I'm not saying that from a competitive aspect for Caitlin Clark, because my gosh, she knows that would be the pinnacle for her career, right? To go and play and represent her country for USA basketball. But let me tell you this, she has been on a full grind, right? If you look at the calendar years, the last 2 years going to the Final Four, going right into the WNBA season. And not only that, carrying the cape of the WNBA rookie class on her back, being the number 1 overall pick. Okay, so let's take out the mental aspect of all of what I just said. Okay, you're talking about physical aspect too with DT. Well, there's a physical aspect there for Caitlin Clark, albeit she's 22 years old. But when I'm looking at her not making this team, I think it is okay because she will definitely be on the 2028 team. She has time during the stretch in July and part of August to get her footing in the WNBA and get her basketball acumen even lifted higher because of the time that she will have in the gym to rest, recover, and continue to grow with grace in this league. So I think it's great for her. I think it would be a tough learning curve for her to go into yet another professional international league and have to relearn yet another copious amount of philosophies for international basketball. I just think it's good for her to decompress, light that fire and fuse for 2028. Okay, you didn't make it. So now let's get fired up for the next one. But I think it's fine that she didn't make the team this time. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen for her. But I just think the timing of this one, I think it's fine that she's going to sit this one out.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking about winning because that's what I think about. And would she impact or change our ability to win? Who do you take off the roster? I mean, people are talking about politics, they're not talking about winning. I want to talk about winning, okay? And if we need Diana Taurasi, D, to help us win in whatever capacity she provides, she's got 20 years of experience on Caitlin. There's a 20-year difference between Diana and Caitlin, and I don't know who you would take off the roster or who you'd leave out. We hope Chelsea Gray is going to be healthy. Brittany Griner is back. She has played 1 game as of the taping of this. Yeah. So we know she's back. Jackie Young got hurt. We don't know what her status is. There's a lot of variables still up in the air, but the committee has a process that they go through And Caitlin hasn't been a part of the training camps and all the things that they've done because of college and going to the national championship games. She didn't get to do those things. So, look, her skill set's good and it's going to always be there and get better. She's going to add some muscle and strength. I'm just thinking about winning. And there are some other players that have put their time in, and this is the toughest team in the world to make. And
Yep.
I hear people talking about Candace Parker snub and Nneka Ogwumike snub. And what about Arike? She's not on this team. And just to give people history, like go way back.
Yeah.
Becky Hammond wasn't on this team either, and she went over to Russia to play. Okay, now we have dual citizenship with players that are Americans that are playing for other countries. We don't seem to have any problem with any of that anymore. So
Right.
I don't want the politics to be a part of it. I want it to be about winning. So if we need all those players to win, which we will, and international basketball, as we have seen, has gotten better. Teams are stronger and much more skilled. It's part of the landscape of the game now. It's not going to be easy for us, but all the stuff off the floor, yes, she would have impacted that, but we're still going to have great stories around the game. And I'm not dissing any of the former players, and I'm not dissing Caitlin. I do think that she, like you said, will have her chance. So,
right.
I mean, I get to watch her a lot on a daily basis. She keeps getting better, and she's going to keep getting better, mostly because she's got it right here, which you can't measure, and she's got it right here, which we're seeing play out.
Period.
Right?
Yeah, and I mean, she was just here in DC. She had 7 triples. She had 30 points, and I witnessed it with my own eyes yet again. It's like, movies have sequels. It's like, well, I've seen this movie before. She's just cashing in from the logo, guarded. Like, she's not taking pop shots. She's coming off, serpentining through screens and coming off and knocking in contested triples in the pros. She had 30, Deb. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah.
So for me, like you said, I mean, she's incredible. But like you said, it's not about, and I know you love ticket selling players, right? That's your deal, right? And I get it. But everyone is talking about, oh, she would have like so many more eyes on the Olympics. Eyes are going to be on the Olympics regardless. But I understand that, people are just trying to, like you said, quantify it with eyes and financial, things. Like if people watch more because Caitlin Clark's going to be on the team. But what if, like you said, how are you going to take anybody off? How are you going to, if she does make this roster, how's she going to get in the rotation? Is she going to play against these players who have played in multiple Olympic games? 3 of them are in their first Olympic games, but they have a long tenure in the WNBA. So how do you, you going to sit and watch her, be on the bench? Like, are you going to, and not in a shady way. I'm not saying that in a negative way for Caitlin, but she's a baby. I mean, you look back to, Rebecca Lobo, right? She didn't play that much on that USA team in 96. But she was on the team, and it was almost that same wave of interest coming off of an undefeated season with on, right? And then they have her on the team. And I love the documentary of that team. If you haven't seen it, you have to watch it. It's a beautiful story. But just the grind of that for her mentally. And I'd like to know what her thoughts are on that, because she lived that, right? Making that experienced players, right? And how
it was a different time in our game, right? I mean, that year, with the NBA investing so much money in Tara Vanderveer, taking that team around to do a college tour and all the stuff that went into a training camp, because we realized we needed to try something different, which that has led to our dominance. Well, I expect us to continue to dominate. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to tune in. I mean, I'm anxious to see some of the newcomers on the Olympic team and how they fare in that environment. But it's only going to make them better. It's going to make our chances better, and it's going to make the league better. So now let's get to the Commissioner Cup, right? Because the Commissioner Cup's been very interesting. I will tell you that I was on the ESPN Bet show last week, and they asked me to make a pick for the Commissioner Cup, which I did, and I picked New York. And that was before they played Connecticut, and that was before Vegas went on this little slide where they've lost 3 out of their last 4. What's your thoughts on the Commissioner Cup? Let's start with New York first, because you and I see them a lot in the East.
Yeah, we see them a lot. I just saw them yesterday with the Mystics being up there. And, I think they're gelling at the proper time. And even without Courtney Vandersloot on the court, which is a little bit unnerving to think, the rhythm and cadence that they have right now on the offensive end is really impressive to me. Jonquel Jones is different than Jonquel Jones with this team last year. I think she has found how she can mix in with the players around her. And then, my God, we haven't even mentioned Breanna Stewart, who is a phenomenon, right? And really tough to stop. But I think they just have great balance right now. They can kill you on all three levels. I think their defense is outstanding. Sabrina Ionescu is awesome when it comes to decision making, right? I think she stays poised under pressure. And I'm not just talking about her ability to shoot the three, because we know she can nail that thing. But I think just her overall, like in the absence of Courtney Vandersloot, what I've seen in that absence for personal reasons, they have said, I think I've seen her mature into a playmaker, right? Even more so. And not that she didn't have 26 triple doubles at Oregon. We understand that she has always been a great playmaker, but it's a different level, right? Here in the WNBA, you have MVPs all around you, right? With Jonquel Jones and Stewie winning too. Jonquel was MVP in 2021. So you have these MVP players around you, but you still have the ability to, number one, score the ball, right? So her basketball acumen and her decision making on when she needs to be the scorer and when she needs to be the facilitator, I think is the straw that has been stirring their drink. They just secured home court advantage in the Commissioner Cup. And I think they're going to be tremendous in that. I think, you could really see those wheels turning and the competitive juice is flowing for them. It's like an extra incentive. And we saw that with the Lakers in the NBA last year.
We see Freebich and Dojkic starting to take on some role off the bench. Benijah Laney Hamilton is the player that I love to talk about, because I remember when she couldn't make a three and she was struggling to try to make a roster. We had her in Indiana for years. She bounced around for a while. I love watching her play because I remember where she came from, right? And when you can share the story of where she came from, how hard she's worked, what she's done to change her body, and now she's an integral part of what they do. I just love watching her play because that resonates with me. Somebody who has invested time and effort to get better and better and better and to find a role. And then, Sabrina, I'll take her offense versus what they might lose on the defensive end, because they have two shot blockers at the rim with Jonquel and Breanna Stewart. So, and then you got Benijah Laney and whoever you're playing at the other spot. Like, if you're going to lose something on the defensive end and they're going to keep isolating Sabrina's going to be tough enough at least to make some stops. She can stay in front of most players in the league. There's some players she can't stay in front of, but there's some players that nobody can stay in front of. So, I'm not going to diss her on the defensive end, but I do think that people do key on her. And I just love the way that New York has been playing. And I don't even think Stewie's been able to get going yet. And she's put on some really solid numbers across the stat line, but not a big offensive explosion. She just hasn't shot the three well yet. And I know that's coming. So all of that combined is why I picked them ahead of Connecticut before they played Connecticut. And right now it looks like Seattle and Minnesota are looking pretty good in the West. I really like Seattle. What are your thoughts on Seattle?
Oh, wow. Minnesota just snapped their 6-game win streak. So, that was a really great game to see yesterday. But Seattle is another team that is very much, to me, like New York, with their experience and their balance, right? I think Skylar Diggins-Smith has really been great there. Nneka Ogwumike is like really coming along. And when I say coming along, I'm talking about chemistry and meshing with a new team for both of them. But I just think, with Jewell Loyd last year leading the WNBA in scoring, but then they were 11th, 12th, at the end of the year in the ratings, now she has pieces around her where she doesn't have to do it all, although she can do it very well. But she has complementary players where it's tougher for teams to load up on Jewell Loyd now, right? Defensively. And even when they did that last year, she was averaging 27 a game. Excuse me. So it wasn't like, they were stopping her, but now it's just a little bit more easy for her to get into her rhythm and flow offensively because she has these pieces around her and Skylar Diggins-Smith and Nneka Ogwumike. But I love that they've been able to mesh this quickly. I love listening to Jewell Loyd and her post-game comments. It's just every time I listen to her, Deb, I'm just like, yes. She's so poised, but she's so exactly concise with exactly where the team is. So to hear her and know that she's a leader for that team, she has the pulse of the team in her hands, and you could feel it from her with every single word that she speaks. So with that, I know they're being guided well on the sidelines. I know they're being guided well in the locker room, but to have these leaders, and I just think that they've really meshed well, even though Minnesota came in and crashed the party.
Yeah, I love Nefisa Collier, so let me get to her in a second. But Skylar Diggins-Smith and Jewel Lloyd in the backcourt together makes me think about all those great Notre Dame guards that we're watching in the league. Arike, Kayla McBride. People aren't talking about Kayla. I still think one of the best shooters that we've ever had in the WNBA in terms of coming off action and being able to get her feet down and shooting with range. And just, I mean, I was reading something about her the other day about how physically strong she is. Like, she is tough and moves well.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just love watching. You said ticket selling players. That's exactly it. I mean, I want to go watch Jewel get a bucket. I am amazed at what Skylar's been able to do on her second baby and how she's come back. And she looks as fit as she's ever been. And she looks like actually very slight when you see her in person. But we know what kind of mentality she has and the toughness. And then you got NECA and then Magbagor. How about her? My goodness.
Yeah.
She might be the most improved player, or maybe she's just getting numbers. And, remember when she was drafted, I think Dan Hughes drafted her in Seattle and she didn't come over because she was only 18.
Right.
And they retained their rights to her. And what a great get. I mean, and then there's Noelle Quinn. I mean, you talk about solid across the board, right? Just absolutely solid. I enjoy watching her on the sideline.
Yeah. I don't know how Noelle Quinn does that, Debbie, like stay so mild mannered, like that.
I think maybe Pokey has something to do with it. Pokey's so smart, bright, has been a head coach in the league.
Yeah.
And then Ebony Hoffman. I mean, Eb is one of Indiana Fever's former greats. I mean, we love Ebony Hoffman in Indiana.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good staff right there. There's a lot of good staffs out there, though. I learn something every time I study a team. It's so good. It's so good to get that high level basketball stuff. That's the stuff I like, right?
And you're talking about Kayla McBride. I mean, she had 32 in the game yesterday, right?
So good.
I mean, it's insane. So yeah, we need to talk about her more. I think we need to hear Arike Ogunbowale's name a little bit more as well. She is lighting it up. What does she have? 10 straight 20-point or more games for the WNBA record right now. So she's outstandingly consistent, and we're not talking about her enough. I mean, Arike is tearing it up, and she was on SportsCenter, and I was listening to all of her comments too. It's just so great that we're hearing these voices, right? But we need to talk about Arike more. Like, I've been saying that the past week. Like, what about Arike? She had 40 the other week, and then 10 straight 20 or more points.
And she played 50 minutes in that double overtime game. It's crazy, right? So good. All right, let's talk about Nefisa Collier, because she's one of my favorite topics to talk about, because when she was in college dominating at UConn, she's got, I think, I'm trying to remember, I looked this up one time. I think she has the highest overall winning percentage of any player in the history at UConn. It's like 96 point something percent.
Wow.
I mean, she's always a winner.
Even more than
Stewie? Even more than Stewie. Yeah, I think so. I think they're right there together. Wow. And I'd have to go back and look at the number. I'm just going back on previous interests of mine on the UConn dynasty. The Nefisa Collier was picked 7th that year in the draft, and I thought she should have been the first pick. I thought she was that skilled, and now we're watching her. Now she's named to the Olympic team. She's coming off of having a baby as well. I just love these, I love that USA Basketball is going to be challenged with all these moms to take their kids overseas with them, right? I mean, I think it's great, because I know when I was coming up, nobody traveled with their kids. Nobody took them on recruiting trips. Nobody had charter flights. Nobody did any of those things. So I know I never got to take my kids on any trips unless I took them myself. It wasn't like somebody paid for them, right? I don't know about you, but no. I'm just thinking about Nefisa Collier and what an incredible athlete she is, what an incredible skill set she has, and how productive she has been over and over and over for Cheryl Reeve. What are your thoughts on her?
Oh my God. First of all, I love her. She has her own podcast and everything, but just listening to her, she's going to be with Brianna Stewart, and they're starting that new league. And it's just, all these entrepreneurial things I'm just, in awe of, especially being a mom. And Brianna Stewart too has babies. So I just love the fact that, they are shining a light on what's possible. I mean, I think when our guys were little, it was always like, she has a baby, she can't do it. I'm like, and now it's like, she has a baby and she's still doing it and doing it well. So I'm just like, the next generation of women and young girls who see that as not like something that stops your momentum, but something that continues your momentum,
Yes.
right? And adds to who you are as a woman. I think it's beautiful. So
Very well said.
that's my first thing with Fee, but I just love the way that she plays so steadily. I mean, she's never shaken. She's always just very consistent with her mindset. She's very calculated with her decision making on the floor, and she picks and chooses her spots. And her opponents know what those spots are, and they're supposed to be taking them away, and they can't do it. And for her to be the way that she is, sustaining her effectiveness and efficiency on the floor, I think is really fun to see. And I just give kudos shout out to all the moms, man, USA basketball and the WNBA.
Yeah.
It's something that, it's a thankless position in the world, right? When it comes down to it, it's just kind of a given that you'll be everything to everyone, right? But for them to show that they can also be something to themselves and for themselves is so empowering. And I love that, again, for the next generation of women.
Last topic quickly is Unrivaled, the new league, 3-on-3 full court. I'm excited about seeing it. At first, when I heard it announced, I thought, oh, is this going to be taking investment away from the W? But now I've changed my mind because the product that they're going to put out there is going to be so uniquely different. I'm very excited about seeing it. And I love having it in a centralized place where they can minimize the economics of it and try to maximize the player salary. So that there's some really good things here. I'm interested in the player equity. I don't know, when you have 30 players, if you have to cut somebody, what happens to the equity, or how. I know that Nefisa and Brianna are not going to be responsible for who the 30 are, but
right.
Getting the top 30, and then it's going to be interesting to see how it all works out. I'm curious how the equity part works, because I do think equity is important and something that's a brand new thing, because I think it gives you more influence over how you manage your time when you're not playing, and it affects your playing ability on the floor. Like now we've got dedicated, I'm not saying they're not all invested because they don't have equity, but it just changes the lens a little bit from an economic standpoint with what you do with your time off the court. What do you think about the league?
I love it. I think, the more opportunities, the better. And I think, the same with that AU league. At first I was kind of like, oh, what are we doing? But then I'm like, yeah, I love it, and you don't want to, the infancy of the WNBA is what it is. So you don't want to start like breaking things off and then having it falter at any point. But now we're seeing the growth of the league, adding 2 new teams in Toronto and at Golden State. So I think the growth is here. I think the opportunities are here. So I love the fact that there's going to be yet another league, and 3v3 is hard. That's a hard game to play, right? And I think with basketball, the 3, I know Stephanie Dolson said that she had to make quicker decisions and be quicker with her footwork and doing things in the 3v3 competition at USA basketball, the last Olympics. So, I think there's a lot of learning that comes along with that, but I also think there's a lot of reshaping to how you think the game in 3v3. So, the business model of it, I think, is exciting to see how that's going to come through. But I also love the tactical side of it, because 3 is tough. You got to cut and move, but you also have to be ready to defend cuts and moves too.
I think it's interesting because it's full court and the spacing will be different. So, you're not going to really be able to bring 2 to the ball. It could just be an up and down and a drag and then into some action. And do you help or not? I think it's going to be really fun to watch. Okay, so we're up against it here, Christy. I'm wearing my Build, Serve, Empower t-shirt because this is camp week for me. I have a girls only sports camp, 25 different exercises where I'm teaching girls different sport in a peer pressure-free environment, just trying to introduce them to something so that maybe they'll find a sport that they like. One of the things I love is that I have 100 little girls, but I also have a full staff of mainly high school girls and some junior counselors that will one day be my future staff. And I'm trying to teach them how to organize and lead and communicate and do all those things that we know are part of being a team. So it's a big week, plus a couple of WNBA games. That's my week. What you got coming up?
Oh my goodness. Well, I have Mystics all week. Again, I just had a game yesterday, another game tomorrow. They're down in Atlanta, and then they come back and play Chicago again here. It'll be on Ion on Friday. But I have my Everyone Watches Women's Sports shirt on because that's what people do. Everyone watches women's sports. But I love the camps. I miss being a mentor at camps, especially for our young girls. And I love how you said peer pressure free and all of that. It really makes a big difference. We went to camps with boys. I know I did. Did you?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes a difference, right? When it's all girls and they're just out there organically learning about themselves and how to compete. Right. So don't get me started on that because
full transparency, I got 3 weeks of girls only. I do sprinkle one boys week in there just to make sure I have a little balance so nobody gives me a hard time as a boy mom. I mean, I got 3 boys. I got to have a little boys only. But if you wanted to know the difference in the way girls and boys approach sport at that age, you should come to camp because you see the girls in the morning and the boys in the afternoon, and it is totally different. And I know how to manage both because I'm a boy mom, but I also have spent my life in women's sports. So it's a fun week. And you're always welcome. Anytime you want to come down, come on down. Love to have you.
Check it out. I need that vibe in my life. I need those kids in the gym. I love it.
They're so amazing. These little girls, they come in with their little girl power shirt on and they've got all their bedazzle with them. And it's great. It's funny. But hey, another good episode, our second episode of Hoopin' with Christy and Debbie. If you've tuned in to listen or watch, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Christy. Thank you to our producer, B-Mac, the one and only, and her Hoop Stats. This is us. We'll be with you next week. Thanks for being with us.
Love, love, love.